Welcome all. This is Plutonic Plains. This is Meten. This is my weekly human design gateway, and I'm doing 34, gate 34 this week. And it's fairly active, and it's activated by two other gates, and that's the 10 and the 20. And you could see it down here, the 34, the gate of power. And you'll notice a lot of pure manifesting generators have this channel, being the individuals that they are, being busy as they are with that 2034. And with the 10, it relates to their personal identity and their ability to um, feel themselves and their own love for themselves. And that relates to the 57. And this will be Sunday, November 23rd for Australians. It'll be on the 22nd. So I may actually bust this one out a little early for them. So as you can see, we got the Aries Vortex Gate 25, which will culminate next February 19th, and then again when Uranus gets back in the Gemini on April, I think that's 25th, 24th next year. Hope I have that right. And so it's a big year next year. It's kind of a big step off a cliff. It's like at the full next year because we don't really know what 2027, the right angle cross of the sleeping phoenix, we don't know what it's going to look like. All we know is that there's going to be a lot of dust created next year as structures continue to fall. And when that dust clears, that'll be 2027. And who knows what will be. So it's exciting, um, terrifying a little because we're shifting from the right angle cross of planning. And those of you who have that right angle cross destiny, you know about moving. It's about tribes, it's about the collective moving from place to place. It's about the whole beginning of human civilization. Um, I don't mean like prime beginning, but a major beginning. And that's ending. That's ending the end of next year. So we're holding on to this threshold of a world, a specialized world where everyone in the tribe has their own skills and, we're all top heavy, trusting the authority of the mind, not yet having given over our heart for our personal authority in the body in this life. But that will be the case for 2027. If anything, we will only have our heart and our authority and our synthesis of our intelligence as it moves through the field of the biofield of our body. And that's what we're looking at. So currently we have a lot of action going on. We're in Scorpio, we're in the underworld. And all of you, I'm sure, have felt this new moon in Scorpio, 29 degrees in the recent gate that I did about 5, 6 days ago, which was the 14, gate 14, which is all about materiality, money, and success. And that's definitely been on my mind in terms of pushing my services, and that's what it is. And this gate, the 34, is about personal power. And as I was saying, it's a gate that is usually present in any generator. But anyone can have the gate. A projector can have the gate. It's just they won't have it with activation. So the 57, 10, and 20 won't be activated. What we're looking at this week, starting Sunday and Saturday for Australians, those in the South and New Zealanders, we're looking at active energy for all the non-energy types. So the projectors, reflectors, and manifestors, you can get some extra work done this week. And it'll be a time to, it's Thanksgiving for most of us here in North American world and wherever else they're celebrating such disasters, post-colonial disasters, of course. And what it is that we're entering into Sagittarius. So we're kind of right on the cusp. 34 in human design is pretty much considered Sagittarius. So we're kind of we've been pulling back the bow of the arrow with the bow, pulling back the arrow with the bow. And now as we enter Sagittarius, we're releasing it. We're releasing all this energy we've worked out. We're clear now. Not completely clear. Mercury's still in retrograde, as is Saturn and Uranus and Neptune. So still a lot of rethinking, reflecting, reviewing, reassessing. However, we're moving forward quick as the energy of Sagittarius, the quick fire and strength and power of this early Sagittarian energy in the gate 34 is how and what we're moving forth. And I'm going to start off breaking down the meaning of the 34 by utilizing the Ravi Ching by Ra. I'm just going to read. Ra just had a little paragraph here before he gets into the lines, so I'm just going to read it direct. When you get from the 14.6 to the first line of the 34, you step into another process, but it's a continuing process in that sense. The 34 and the 20 and the 40 and the 37 and the 23 and the 43 are the three oppositions in the zodiac. So what he's talking about is like these are oppositions in the mandala wheel of human design. And that's the 43-23. So it's Taurus and Scorpio polar oppositions. And then he's talking about the 40 and 37 down here. From the ego to the solar plexus, these are oppositions. It's Virgo and Pisces. And the third one being the 34 and 20, which is Sagittarius and Gemini. And we know that Uranus, presently retrograde, will go back into gate 20 in April and activate that simultaneous mind that I was talking about when I went over that gate in the summer. And he goes on to say, you're dealing with a high level of commonality here. In other words, there's a greater abundance of those six gates because they happen more often in the polarity of opposition of the Sun-Earth nodes. The third, and what he means is that those are the most common channels in the human design graph. And it has to do with the polar opposition because the nodes are always based on polarity. And so is the Sun Earth on both sides. And so those are the particular oppositions. So the Sun and the nodes are going to be in those gates and activate them more so than the other gates do, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm making sense, but you could listen to it over if there's hope that I made sense. So the 34, the gate of power, is a very complex gate. Now what Ra's talking about here is like there's levels and levels of meaning to this gate, and Richard Rudd goes over it in his original Gene Keys book, which I'll get to. And he says it's just not, he says it does not just look for one thing. It has three different ways in which it can go. It's a very intense power field. The 34, due to its commonality, has a very special value, like the third gate. The third gate tells us about the nature of what it is to be alive. The nature of confusion and the transcending of confusion leads to order. I have gate 3, so I know what that is. This is the nature of life, but the 34 speaks of the energy for survival itself. It is one thing to be alive, but it's another thing to die. The 3 is not there to keep us alive, the 34 is. It is the nature of the 34 gate to enhance our survival of individuals. It is literally there to fuel life itself. The power to individuate comes out of the 34. Now, this is very layered here, very layered. And give you guys a simple summary right now, and then later on I'll go deeper into depth. The 34 is a gate of power on the lowest level frequency, a power of force. And so it could be a very bullying gate, especially expressed in a low frequency. And it could be very pushy, very forceful, very intense, almost controlling, although I wouldn't say controlling. That's more of a mental issue. But because this is not a mental gate at all, this is just the life force coming straight from the sacral, pumping into three different possible gates, the 20, 10, or 57. This is one of the most powerful gates in the body graph. And in a higher frequency, it would manifest as strength. And it would be it would be utilizing strength instead of force. And so there's greater control, greater preciseness with the goals. And then there's a whole nother level that Rudd talks about called majestic or majesty. And that has to do with the allowance of the life force and the body to move and to move of its own intelligence. So it's the body utilizing its intelligence, not not under the authority of the mind, but under the authority of the sacral and its own intelligence, its own movement. So it's almost like a dissolving of the individuality. And it's a very individual gate for those who have it, but on its highest frequency level, Rudd's talking about it being an expression of life force itself moving through the body and deciding itself. And there's no individuality or personality in that at all. Now, if you have this color black, you'll have more conscious awareness of it. If you have it red, from the design side, the unconscious side, from the body side, then there's the gold in a sense because you can tap into that. Any of us could tap into it. We all have every single gate and center and channel open or defined. But open is always an invitation for definition from the transits or from the solar return. So that's what it is. Chaitan in his book talks about the 34. He talks about it very individually in terms of a person. And he's saying you're given this power in this lifetime. And it's obviously one of the nine gates of the sacral. Um, but he says it's the only one that's asexual, which is very interesting. And the reason why it's because it's purely about empowering individuation. So it's personal achievement. It's a natural compulsion to engage directly with the lives of others. So this is an expression that's independent and happy to go along with others most of the time. But it's a pursuit of accomplishments and self-empowerment. So, and Rudd talks about this as well, is that this is a great gate of accomplishment. I mean, a lot of gurus, masters, CEOs have this particular gate. It's about achieving power. And it's a very impressive force or strength or majestic presence. And it's almost as though one were, to quote Chaitan, it's almost as though you were born with blinkers to keep your eyes solely on your goals and achievements. When you walk into a room and add your input, the energy will go up a notch or three because you're like an energetic pulse. I decided not to use his chosen metaphor as it's dated. What you will come to know is that you need to monitor and balance the use of power according to the people and situations that confront you. There is no point in cracking a nut with a sledgehammer, but also no point in trying to open a nut with a pair of tweezers. So this is a gate of potential powerhouse who can easily drag anyone or anything towards the finish line. But there's no point in applying this resource to unrewarding pursuits. So Chaitan also discusses this as an Achilles heel for the go-getters. So be aware and practice discernment. And what he means, I gather by saying that, is you only move forward with the energy if it's a yes. If the sacral's response is a no, then it's a no. And if it's not a yes, then it's a no. It's very, and if you go forth and try to manifest something that's a no, the sacral won't turn on. And people with this will just end up downright exhausted. And so as with any sacral for all you generators, you want to make sure that something is coming to you and you're responding to it. And that's when the sacral turns on. And these are people who would rather just be busy doing their own thing, whatever it is. Busy doing nothing if they don't have the 57. If they have the 57, then the intuitive intuition of the spleen will give them quick action to get this or that done. Either way, it's a very quick and a lot of people talk about, it's very one of the big kind of psychological words of the day is ADHD. But, on another level, it's like this is the channel of ADHD. It's just pure MGs, because that's what I mean when I talk about the 3420. These are beings that can do many things at a time, and they're supposed to. They can talk on the phone and play some guitar scales and, massage their ankles. I don't know. They could do a lot of things at once. And it's not that they're not paying attention. It's just that simultaneous awareness of gate 20, with the energy of the 34 to just be busy, get stuff done. And let's go deeper now into this particular gate. Now, Rudd went deep into the gates in terms of how each gate represents, it has its ring, it has its polarity, or not polarity, but it has its programming partner, and how there's levels of frequency that each gate expresses. Now, with the 34, I mean, there's so many layers of it. I mean, there's sequences, there's certain gates that are open, or certain gene keys that are, as Rod would say, that they have certain genetic processes and others don't. I'm forgetting the terms now, but so the 34 is very interesting because it has many layers. All of them do, but the layer of the 34, this is about our most ancient instinctual individual survival. So the programming of this genetic coding is pretty much related to an early phase of our evolution. Now, when I use that term, I want to make it clear that if that even exists, definitely involution does as well. But we'll get to that a little later. Now, as we go through this, so I go through this breakdown, the lowest frequency that manifests through the 34 is an intense self-absorption. And so it leads to the utilization of power without awareness, without self-awareness. And so that's the possible destructive expression of our genetic continuity relative to this early evolutionary force prime directive survival gate 34. So how did we evolve utilizing this gate? Well, I mean, trial and error, of course. And the programming partner is the 20. And that's the one it connects to, as you can see up here, where Uranus is going to be back soon. And 20 is the gate of has the lowest frequency that represents superficiality. And it's kind of like an absent presence. Sometimes people with the 20 can be so self-absorbed with the 34 that they're not even present for what's around them. There's so many processes occurring within. So they may not have immediate awareness of what's in front of them. And the lowest frequency expresses like trying or forcing things to happen or just doing things without thinking, reflecting, caring. Like the 51, it's very competitive, very ferocious, very intense. It can get into extremes that give rise to, the horrific acts that humans have been known for in the past. And, at lower frequencies, it can represent as such. So when we get to the right frequency utilization of these gates, and what we're talking about here is that life's about doing the right thing at the right time. And so, in order to function on a higher level of frequency, and as I talk about this for the individual, remember, I'm talking about we're all utilizing this energy next week. So, we're all going to have this capacity to bring this power forth and get things done. And, you may feel as these pure MGs do, is that you may need a great deal of space and freedom and proper boundaries. And, the process, what you learn from this is force versus strength, how to be strong, but not to be forceful. And so in this gate is there's this deep I don't know how to say the word not reservoir, but reserve of great inner strength. And it's because the 34 is about the ability to survive. That's obviously very powerful in humanity. We've survived for a long time. And well, perhaps in light of our real or fake evolution, we haven't been around for such a long time, but for all intents and purposes, we have. So again, this is about the intelligence of the gut, of the sacral. And the sacral is not really an awareness center. The awareness centers are up here, and they're also to the right, the solar plexus. Those are awareness centers. Sacral is not really aware per se. It does what it does. And this is a natural, grounded power that can connect to all life. And it connects to a pure awareness that's not necessarily manifest in the highest frequency. Because in its highest frequency, it just expresses the intelligence, the pure intelligence of the body to do what's correct in response. Now, this is one of those gates where there's also layers of anger. So, energy needs to be utilized into healthy activities. So anger can be redirected. And strength, strength is something that expresses itself with exertion, but not resistance. And also, even on the level of this middle level of frequency, it's something that's not aware of itself. It's just its true strength is representing through form, through the sacral, through that energy rising up in the body. And, Rudd gets into this. He gets into this contrast between evolution and involution. evolution being, what a lot of us are talking these days, especially as energy workers. Oh, we can change our own DNA. Oh, we can do this. Oh, we can do that. But there's also the source and force, or not force, but the source expression of involition, which is a higher force outside that makes change possible. I know Oracle Girl talks about this as nature decides. She says basically nature decides. Nature makes that decision and decides what processes your body will go through or what it's ready for. And this gets into the whole, idea that we need to meditate every day or we need to, do our mudras or asanas or Tai Chi or Qigong. No, those are great things. I enjoy a lot of those things. But it's not about that. The body is creating its own awareness through its own processes, through its own initiations as the planets move not only outside of us, but within through us. And our lack of resistance is what allows those genetics of ours to change and grow, and what allows those gates to allows us, or if we allow that space to be opened up within us for those energies to work and intelligences through us. And so it's a dilemma in the sense that the key here is to let go of one's individuality, to more so allow the essence of what life is, the intelligence of it, a pure intelligence to flow through the body, through from the sacral, even without awareness of it. And that brings us to that highest frequency because, there was, I remember this old lecture from the mid 2000s, and I can't remember if Ra was in the lecture, but there was an MG who only had the 2034. And he did this experiment where for years, he just like got out of his house one day and went for a walk and did everything based on gut response and ended up traveling most of the United States by just basically walking about or biking or hiking. I can't remember the details. He was going to tell the story, but there was other people at the gathering who were talking and they didn't let him share the story, which, is sad in a way because it was a really powerful example of this particular channel being utilized. And one we could only surmise because I never heard the story, but I remember him mentioning a little, and it might have actually been in one of the early lectures for to learn human design. I forgot what they're called, but might have been on one of those um, programs. I might have the first one that I did. I think it was on there, maybe. I can't remember. Um, but that's what it is. Everyone's going to have this extra energy this week. And it'll be great coming off, especially this new moon. We're not even done with it. It's not until really the 23rd and 24th that it'll be over. And, just don't push your luck. We're still in the underworld until Sunday. And even then, it's going to linger on another day, I feel like. But mostly it'll be gone as we move into the Sag energy and the moon moves into Capricorn and Sagittarius. And I think that's it. I don't think I have anything more to add. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Hopefully that was helpful. I'm just trying to think if there's anything to add. maybe a pullback and understanding for those struggling to understand human design and maybe are listening and thinking, oh, you want to understand it. Understand it visually. Give yourself time to look at the gate, even if you don't understand it. Visually take in, like right now, for example, this image, like visually take it in. You're actually, there's actually intelligences within you that are grasping the information. Because we now live in an age of synthesis, not the age of specialism is over. We're moving to an age of synthesis where all of us are incorporating multiple layers of knowingness. The age of belief is over as well, the Piscean age. This is an age of knowingness. And how do we know things? Well, we don't always know, do we? And synthesis, we know, we don't know how we know. And so synthesis is something that we get through the synthesis of the right and the left hemisphere of the mind, of the brain. And this is what human design supports, being initially a left brain process as you get the reading. And then as the experiment succeeds through its 7-year process, it becomes a synthesis expression. And so then it's a body intelligence awareness and no longer something just stuck in the intellect, but something that engages both the right and left hemispheres of the mind. And so that's what it is. That's the power of what it is. Okay, thanks so much, everyone. Also, I noticed the right angle cross of the sleeping phoenix happens during this time. So those born around this time, you have the sleeping phoenix. So you are our leaders in the coming years. Lead us well. All right, take care, everyone. Thanks so much for listening. I really appreciate it. And take care.